Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the World Bank Atrium. I'm Noriana Fernando from the Communications and External Relations team, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this panel, Building Bridges, Youth, Mental Health, and the Future of Work. Now, as you know, this event is a side event of the World Bank Group Youth Summit, Future Works, Designing Jobs for the Digital Age. And today we want to zoom in on something that gets overlooked a little too often and left out of the conversation about the future of work. That is the inner world of young people, their mental health, their resilience, and their sense of purpose. Let me introduce you to three remarkable people who will be joining me on stage to have this conversation. First, we have Aki Nishio, the World Bank's Vice President for Development Finance, overseeing IDA, which is the World Bank's fund for the 78 poorest countries. Aki has spent more than 30 years at the World Bank, and today he's not here just as a development leader, but as someone with a deeply personal connection to the story that we will hear today. We're also honored to be joined by Jennifer Poza, who is a globally recognized leader in human performance and organizational well-being. She served as the first ever Chief Wellbeing Officer at the Central Intelligence Agency. And before the CIA, she spent 17 years at the Mayo Clinic and served as the Global Head of Employee Mental Wellbeing at Johnson & Johnson. And we're, of course, also joined by Ana Ćosić Pajurin, who is the president of the Krešimira Ćosić Foundation in Croatia, dedicated to youth empowerment and well-being. Mental health and youth well-being are among the issues that the foundation is working on. She's also the daughter of basketball legend Krešimira Ćosić, a Hall of Famer who became a symbol of unity and resilience during one of Europe's most devastating conflicts. Anna is in fact in Washington this week to launch the English translation of her father's autobiography. Welcome to you all. Thank you for the conversation we're about to have. And before we dive in, let me set the scene because I think we need to understand how we all came to be here today, and for that, you need to know a little bit more about the man named Krešimira Ćosić. Krešimira was a basketball legend, the first European to become a star at an American university, and later Croatia's deputy ambassador to the United States during one of the dark chapters in the region's history. He was a man who crossed every border put in front of him, cultural, political, geographic, because he believed that showing up for others without expecting anything in return was simply the right thing to do. And we'll keep coming back to this idea of showing up for others without expecting anything in return. He passed away at just 46, unfortunately, but his legacy lives on through his daughter, Anna, who is here with us today. His story is also Croatia's story, and as you will see, it connects in a very unexpected way to our conversations about mental health and the future of work. All of this will make sense in about 3 minutes, so let's watch a short video on the screen to your right.
After more than 40 years, I'm back in Croatia, in a part of the world that has taught me the immense value of cultural diversity. Croatia has become something remarkable in the development world. 6 years ago, they joined as a donor to the International Development Association, or IDA, our fund for 78 low-income countries around the world. This year, Finance Minister Marko Primorac announced an extraordinary 115% increase in Croatia's contribution. This is more than an impressive statistic. It is a declaration of solidarity with the rest of the world, where they give without expecting anything in return. This reminds me of an extraordinary Croatian who embodied this very principle. 4 decades ago in Tokyo, I met Krešimira Ćosić, a man who became the first European basketball star at a university in the United States and later served as Croatia's bridge to the world. What struck me wasn't just his athletic achievements, it was also his vision of bringing countries together and how he naturally served as a bridge between Croatia and the rest of the world. After becoming a citizen of the world through basketball, he served as Croatia's deputy ambassador to the United States during the war. Tragically, he left us too soon at the age of 46, 30 years ago. His passing itself served as a bridge, as people came to attend his funeral in Croatia despite the raging war. But his legacy lives on through his daughter Anna in the foundation she's established in her father's honor. I had the privilege of meeting Anna, who told me that among the lessons she learned from her father was that it is important to help others without asking for anything in return.
I think the key to him being a bridge is that he was brave. He wasn't scared of going out of his comfort zone and trying different things that he thinks will benefit him, but more importantly, society. Everything that he would do, he would ask himself, is this good for the society, not for the individual?
This spirit of building bridges, what Krešimir did in sports and diplomacy, is exactly what Croatia is doing today through IDA. And when massive earthquakes hit Croatia in 2020, they didn't just rebuild. They engineered solutions and built back better, then shared those lessons with the rest of the world. After Croatia became an IDA donor, other countries in the region followed. Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, and of course Slovenia, which was the first country in the region to become an IDA donor 20 years ago. This means that all former members of Yugoslavia have become IDA donors. Countries that understand what it means to need support, now ensuring that others get that same chance. As I walk through Zagreb again after decades, I think about Krešimir's vision of working across boundaries and connecting different parts of the world. That's exactly what IDA does and what Croatia embodies today. Croatia is not just contributing to IDA's multi-billion-dollar mobilization. They are building bridges between nations, just like Krešimir did. Anna told me, "Thank you for building bridges, but it is Croatia that I should thank for showing us that solidarity knows no borders."
It's this deeply moving idea of building bridges that we will keep coming back to, of human connection, of personal courage. And so let's dive right in with a familiar voice. Aki, let's start with you. So you are a professional at the intersection of development, finance, and solidarity. But today you brought us here to talk about something more personal, the mental health of young people. What drew you to this topic, and why did Krešimira Ćosić's legacy feel like the right lens for this conversation?
Thank you, Noriano, for the first question, and thank you all for being here with us today. And you just saw the story of how I got to know Anna, and also got to hear about her foundation. When I heard that she was coming to Washington, D.C. for the book launch, I felt really compelled to invite her to come and talk about mental health among the youth, because it is something that the foundation works on, and it's something that is also important for us here in the World Bank and in the world at large. In the World Bank, one interesting and kind of cautionary statistic is that when management provides this extended sick leave, ESL, 1 out of 3 extended sick leaves are related to mental health. And used to be actually 1 out of 5. So it increased sharply during the COVID years. And this is also consistent with, and Jennifer would know better, but consistent with trends in other parts of the United States where you saw a increase during the COVID years. And what to me is very surprising is that the incidence of mental health issues has not come down. It sort of stayed at a high level. And I think that's something that we need to address. And also, as I was talking to Anna before this event, suicide is now the 3rd leading cause of death among young people between ages 15 and 29 years, not just in the United States, but globally. So these are statistics that we need to take very seriously. And these facts made me think that we have to really think together about how we can address the mental health issue And you know, it brought back also the stories of Krešimira and how he cared about other people. And also, doing it without expecting anything in return. And I thought that this would be a great topic for discussion here in Youth Summit. I must also add that in today's world, I think the youth are facing perhaps more pressure. For instance, there is this technology aspect. You have more and more social networks, other means of always being monitored, always being subjected to commentaries that is constant and non-stop. And especially for those who are in athletics, then there is this expectation to excel. And that's always going to be there. And so I think all these things are formidable issues for the youth to work with. That is all I have to say at this point. Thank you, Noriana.
Thank you, Aki. Anna, let's turn to you. Welcome, and you're here all the way from Zagreb. It's great to have you here. And youth and mental health are one of the issues that you and your foundation is turning towards. What drew you to this space?
First of all, thank you all for having me here. The reason we started with mental health, the foundation was founded to share my father's vision and everything that he did for the world in the way that he did, very unselfishly. And so all the activities that we do is keeping that in mind. And what we noticed through time is exactly the statistics that Aki was talking about. And this is the future. You know, we're not going to get involved into professional sports. There's a lot of people that are paid very well to do this. So, but the kids, this is what's going to be left. And this is, maybe it's even selfish when I'm older, they're going to be taking over the world. And if they're not, strong and not scared and willing to take risks and willing to try and go out there, it really depends. I don't even know what kind of future we're going to have.
Thank you, Anna. Well said. And Jennifer, I want to bring you in here because you've spent your career inside institutions thinking exactly about this question. But not everyone would immediately associate the CIA with a focus on employee well-being. So what made you say yes to that role? And what did you believe about mental health that you felt the world, not just the CIA, that the world needs to hear?
Yeah, I'll start with your first question. And certainly thank you to the World Bank and everyone for the opportunity to talk about this very important topic. Saying yes to the role of the Chief Wellbeing Officer at the CIA, it was an interesting decision because being in an officer is sacrifice. And I knew there would be sacrifice for me and my family as well. But I said yes for 3 reasons. The first was I never had the opportunity to serve my country, and I always wanted to. The second was it was because I wanted to impact even more people around the world. And with this organization, the agency supports the world, freedom, democracy, and essential values that I believe in. And to be able to impact more individuals around the world through this workforce was very powerful for me. The third reason was really because I felt as though it was so important that we support the officers at the agency and the work that they do. And the best way I could use my talents and my skills were to actually bring those skills to an organization that was prioritizing the well-being of their officers, which leads me to, I think, your second question around mental health and well-being overall. So I'm an organizational psychologist, and you have the ability to structure the systems, the processes, and the policies within organizations to support the well-being of individuals rather than compromise the well-being of individuals. And I think in the area of mental health, Aki, you mentioned this, and I think you allude to this with even our children, we want to build environments, whether they be within our communities or within our organizations, that support the mental, the physical, the emotional, the social, the financial, and the spiritual health of all of us. And that does take very strong leadership and empowering leaders to do that. So my motivation around mental health and overall well-being is to apply those skills, apply the science, build the techniques and the discipline within organizations so that this is the easy thing to do, not the thing you feel as though you're fighting against. And that's the work that I do and I've been privileged to do throughout my career.
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm sure that's music to the ears of many young people who are entering the workforce or in the workforce. Aki, let's go back to this story of Croatia, because we're the World Bank, we work with governments and countries around the world, and Croatia is an interesting case study that I think is worth unpacking. What do you see as the link between a country's commitment to global solidarity and the way it invests in its young people?
Thank you. So as the video showed, Croatia has taken a very courageous and groundbreaking step in becoming IDA donor 6 years ago. And that prompted many other countries to also become IDA donors. Now, that kind of forward thinking and the commitment to the youth, I think there are 3 specific links between those 2 things. And one is that this sense of solidarity. You know, IDA is about solidarity, also tackling youth in addressing their mental health issues. I think that also takes solidarity. And that is a very close parallel between those 2 things. Another important thing is that I think Croatia, when it became an IDA donor, there was a sense of purpose. And I remember talking to Croatian authorities at the time. They intentionally wanted others to follow. And I thought that was a real vision that I really admired. So sense of purpose really moved Croatia. And I think also young people, when they have a sense of purpose, I think they deal perhaps better with mental health issues. And the third link I see is what Noriana mentioned a couple of times, that being there for others. That I think is really important. It's not, you cannot solve these issues alone. You are not alone. There are different services and help that you can get. And I think here in the World Bank, we do have such services too. And not just those professional services, but also your friends, your communities. You know, they should be out to support you. So these are the links I see.
Thank you, Aki. There's real truth in what you're saying. Being there for others without expecting anything in return, it gives you a sense of purpose. So there are connections here that we can all explore in our own lives. And Anna, it's an exciting week you have ahead. You're launching your father's translated autobiography next week. And it's a book that speaks to resilience, purpose, and the power of sports to transcend borders. What message from the book do you hope young people in the audience here today can take home?
The book is not going to be available in the U.S. until later this year, but we're using this opportunity to share the message for now. What is important is that when you read the book, the life that he had was really extraordinary. He lived in those 46 years, 10 lives. You know, from Olympic gold. To being a little scrawny kid that no one believed in, that told him not to play basketball and, you know, you're never going to amount to anything. And defying, you know, all this advice and people and going his own path and escaping socialism to come to the U.S. to play basketball, but still returning back to Croatia and applying everything that he learned here back home, and then again coming back to the U.S. when Croatia needed it the most, when he was a diplomat with his connections that he got while playing basketball. So the whole life is very, it's very serendipitous. And a young person can understand, or of course an older person is going to read this, is how your life choices, though they may seem at a point trivial, they will reflect what happens later on in life. And some choices that you may think are, you know, this doesn't matter, I'll just do the easier path, the harder path usually gives greater rewards.
And I'm sure we have some athletes in the audience today. Today is the opening match of the World Cup. So this feels like a fitting question to dive into. And you've been an athlete yourself. You played basketball at Brigham Young. What parallels do you see between athletes trying to excel and young people seeking jobs that excite them? And maybe there are lessons that each can learn from the other.
Well, an athlete, I think they need to, they give up a lot of their time, which people don't see. You know, they just see the game. But then behind the scenes, you know, there's a lot of mental focus. They're rehearsing plays in their head, and they're doing the physical exercises. So this requires a lot of time. And any young person that decides to go in any direction they want, whatever the career is, if they invest that much time as an athlete does in their sport for their final game, they're going to be successful. So it's all about commitment and not giving up. And just, you know, when you're low and when it's hardest, when you think you're not going to make it and this is not for me, just get up and the next day is just going to be better.
Thank you, Anna. That's an important message. When it feels hardest, keep going. Let's go to the theme of this year's Youth Summit, Future Works, designing jobs for the digital age. The digital age, that's hanging over our heads. AI, automation, remote work, it's reshaping everything as we know it. And Jennifer, let me ask you, are we designing these new workplaces in a way that supports young people's mental health? Could we be doing better? Are we making it worse? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So I think we're just beginning to redesign our workplaces and work itself. And I think there's opportunities and risks in this. In fact, global employers, small employers, mid-sized employers, they're actually all struggling with this right now. So how do we incorporate and build the technical skills that we need, as well as bring the technology into our workplaces? But then how do we make sure that individuals utilize that technology and then excel within the work that they're doing? So you hear a lot about this discussion, but I think it's an excellent question because there's great opportunity for us to redesign work and redesign our workplaces. Putting AI, for example, on top of broken systems, broken policies, and broken infrastructure is only going to make our problems worse. And then we will have to continue to try to pull ourselves out of what I would call a spaghetti map of things that are not working and causing us as individuals to be more stressed, more burned out, and having a lot of those physical ailments that we see within the data that Aki was sharing, right? So instead, I think there's an opportunity to actually take a step back and use the science of neuroscience as well as psychology and build what we've learned over the last 3 to 4 decades and build that into the systems. So the architecture that we're building and the infrastructure that we're creating not only brings the best, most advanced technology that we can use, but it also looks at the human being as the potential to be optimized. So if each one of you in your jobs today could actually be optimal in terms of your strengths, exuding your purpose in the work that you're doing, collaborating with others more easily, and we're leveraging technology to do that, you will actually perform at higher levels. So I talk a lot, Noriana, about readiness. So are we ready as not only the individuals designing these workplaces, but are our leaders ready, our children being developed in their school systems to have the readiness skills to do that? The first skill is purpose and understanding what your purpose is. I hear a lot about that with the Croatian culture, your father, what you do in the foundation through this conversation. But I think it's so important to make sure that purpose is actually driving what it is that we are doing and creating these environments with intention. The second area is actually strength. Strength is your own agency and the ability to build these strengths each day. As professional athletes and even college athletes, you're building your muscles, your physical strength to go out on that court. But Anna, I think you would probably agree with me. It was as much mental as it was physical before you prepared for that game at Brigham Young, right? So us recognizing the mental resilience, the mental strength, the emotional strengths we have to do our work and to perform at our highest abilities is also critically important. The third is security. I actually think the World Bank helps with that, with all of your programming, funding, and the initiatives around the globe to make sure people feel safe and secure. And then finally, the cultures and the neighborhoods that we're creating. And that's built through relationships. So I think when we think about technology, I actually think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. I don't believe we can advance without the technology and AI further than where we're at. I actually love AI, but what I think we should be doing with it is actually, and what I'm helping companies do, is build those systems to make sure that we take what are the barriers and the challenges out of the way, so that when Ana goes to work, she feels as though she can bring her full self there and actually be of her full potential each and every day.
Well said, Jennifer. I think you're saying that we have this opportunity to create the environments for young people to thrive. And this idea of thriving, right? Aki, I want to come to you on that because you're looking at your 30-year career at the bank and the young people in the room today, what is one thing you would want them to understand about what they actually need to thrive, what institutions can do, but what the world can do?
I want to go off script a little bit. Now, how many of you watched the NBA playoff game last night? Now, it was an incredible game. Now, those of you who are here, who are young, you are the San Antonio Spurs. Those who are not so young are the New York Knicks. And to the San Antonio Spurs, you guys are young, talented, hopeful, enthusiastic. That's all fantastic, right? But you cannot be complacent. You cannot be too confident, overly confident. You have to learn from the mistakes you make. And I think when these young people sometimes get into real difficulties is when you have some kind of a setback, something that doesn't go right, and you've been a high performer in your young life. And then something doesn't go right and you hit a wall. Now, this is when I think you really have to regroup and be thick-skinned and be determined to just go over the issues that are confronting you. Now, so that's the lesson I want to give to the San Antonio Spurs of last night. And I think they will do better at the next game. So don't give up. That was only the fourth game. There are more games to come, and they can certainly come roaring back, and I'm sure they will.
Thank you, Aki. It's a fitting example for today. Now, as we come to the close of our panel, I would like to invite all three of you to give us some hope, something to look forward to. There's a lot of doom and gloom, lots of reasons to not feel great. But let's end on a happy, or at least a positive, hopeful note, where I ask you, what gives you the most hope for the next generation of young people entering the workforce? It can be a personal example, it can be a fact, but let's walk away with some hope. Ana, I'd like to start with you.
The new generation is a little bit different than us, though I sound old when I say this, and I don't feel old. But what they have, what we didn't have, is they know exactly what they want. And when we were younger, you had the Devil Wears Prada mindset where you were, just going and doing whatever the boss is saying, and you got to, prove yourself, and one day it's going to pay off. But today I feel like they know, like, this is not for me. I'm not going to waste my time with this. I'm going to get into something better, or that's, it's better for me. And they don't get pushed around, which is really great. And I really applaud them for that. I wish we had the courage for that. So, things are looking good for them.
Well said, Ana. Jennifer?
I think what I'm most excited about with this generation is that they won't accept the status quo. And I think that's a very good thing, because if you accept the status quo, you will stay in the same place, you will not advance, you will not innovate, you will not collaborate with others. And I think when we are not, and we start to question things, and we say, is that right for me? Or is that the way, even though it has always been done that way? Do we want to continue to do it this way? Oftentimes, the biggest wins come when you say, no, let's change, let's experiment, let's innovate. Let's use our curiosity to explore new ways of doing things. That's when huge innovation happens, and I believe that the next generation will do that for us.
Thank you. We accept the challenge. Okay, Haki, over to you.
Yeah. Well, I think what excites me the most is how the young people are embracing diversity, and you can actually see it in this room. I mean, atrium. You know, I think the young people today are much more comfortable being with people from other cultural, ethnic, social backgrounds than when I was growing up. Certainly, Washington, D.C. has changed a lot in those years, too. The fact that we can draw strength from others, not necessarily those who are close to you, but those who have some kind of a common sense of purpose and some kind of a camaraderie and friendship to come together across those boundaries, to me, I think is a very strong energy source for surmounting issues and becoming, reaching a good mental health well-being.
Thank you very much, Aki. Thanks for the messages of hope. And let me also acknowledge it's okay to not be okay. Statistically speaking, mental health issues are present in this room. And if you're struggling, reach out, ask for help. There are resources. And going back to Krešimira Ćosić's message, when in doubt, help others without expecting anything in return. And I can tell you from personal experience, it does help. So let's thank our wonderful panelists for their time and give them a round of applause. And thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the summit.